Why the cult of calories? Well, I think it's really important for everyone to understand that this has become baseline information on weight loss. There's almost no talking about losing weight without the subject of calories and then by extension, calorie counting coming up. And I really want to challenge that thinking in your mind because I think it's counterproductive. And there's two questions that I love to ask about calorie counting. Is it necessary? And is it a good idea? And what I want to do in these next two episodes is break down exactly why we do this, why it's counterproductive, and then the final is really why it's harmful to you. This is part one, and I'm calling it the fallacies of calorie counting and why we keep trying. I like to call this running into a brick wall. This is basically how I think of calorie counting as a practice. And there's really not a person that I've spoken to almost anywhere who hasn't relied on this practice or this idea and gone back to it over and over and over again. And when I bring members into my program, one of the very first things I have to do is help them understand why it's been so difficult and such a failure, and help them understand why this practice is really contrary to their long-term health gains. And so we're going to do it now together. I'm going to do it with you because if you listen to any of the podcast episode, and I'm going to try to make all of them in season one, which is sort of centered around the idea of freeing yourself, really liberate you from bad ideas. This is the one. This is the one I think that traps people endlessly into over and under eating. And I think of it as a loathsome practice. I'll give you my little story about how I came to never use these apps again, which, like, most of us use apps for calorie counting. And by the way, when I use the calorie myth, it's really important to understand that could be colors, that can be points. It doesn't matter. They're all based on the calorie the calorie myth, which is actually an article I'm going to reference later on in this podcast that makes some amazing points. Now, of course, all of your information can't come from one article, so, but it gives us a good starter. So in my own life, this was around the time that I had that scale incident that I talk about in episode 1. This happened within a week or two of that. And I remember, I don't know if I was on the Weight Watchers app or some other, or like there's, My Fitness Pal or whatever. And I was putting figs into an app. So figs, fresh figs, like just fresh fruit. And I love figs, and I eat them with abandon now. But at the time I was trying to lose weight, and I felt like I had to do this in order to lose weight, which I think you if you're listening, you can probably relate to that. Like this whole idea of suppressing yourself through calorie counting, as though food is a counting exercise and eating is a counting exercise. And if you just had the math, you would be able to have success. And despite the vast amounts of data that is not the case, people continue to blame themselves. And so that's the purpose of this two-parter, is to really I really want you to free yourself from this idea.